Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Burrito. It is 10 a.m. on Tuesday. I'm Michael.
And I'm Eric.
Thank you for joining us today.
I can't believe they're back.
I know. Well, last week we didn't even give them an answer to what we were going to talk about. They're
I know.
coming in like completely
Total surprised.
unknown.
Don't you love it?
No, so we talked and we think we've come up with a great topic for today. A topic that will hit all kinds of people in different ways, I think.
In fact, we did so much talking in pre-show. We ate our burritos.
That's true. We did.
I'm just down to coffee.
Bye-bye burritos. Well, you do have a bottle of water there for you.
I do, but
That's not going to help you with
hunger.
hunger.
But the burrito thing, it was really good this morning.
It was really
good. So
I don't know. Maybe it was just me, but it seemed fuller than usual. Like
I feel pretty
like just packed.
Well, they made fresh hash browns for yours.
Did they really?
Yeah, I had to wait like an extra 35 minutes.
No, you did not.
I did.
It doesn't take 35 minutes.
Half a tank of fuel sitting there waiting for you.
Oh, whatever. No, so yeah, we did have burritos. If you have not joined us for the morning burrito, the reason we call this the morning burrito is because generally we eat burritos during the show, during the podcast, but
there's no spiritual significance to that at all.
Not really. No, we just really like morning burritos. So if you are just tuning in, grab a coffee, grab a bottle of water if that's your juice, or apple juice or something, or orange juice. Grab your pancakes or waffles or toast or whatever.
Because this will be a topic that's going to knock your socks off.
Yeah, I think
might even be a home run.
So before we get deep into it, I think there's going to be this topic is going to hit particularly our parents who are listening, or grandparents. I think that this is a topic for you if you are a parent, particularly a parent of a kid who's involved in stuff. You will probably find this to be the most interesting of anybody. But I think everybody's going to find the conversation interesting. But before we get there, let me just ask you a very basic question, Eric, this morning. Did you play sports?
Successfully?
I didn't say that.
Well, I played.
I mean, this doesn't count King of the Hill,
in the sandbox?
in your sandbox with a Matchbox.
But I was good at King of the Hill in the sandbox.
Because you were playing by yourself.
Well,
because you were an only
the only child, and it was my sandbox. So, So I can't dribble a basketball worth anything. So I didn't do basketball. I tried, failed miserably. Baseball, okay hitter, but not the fastest guy in the outfield. And I'm too chicken to play infield. So
I played second base.
Well, my reactions aren't that quick, probably. So football, I ended up on the football line, played the line, and racked my knee in high school. So, I was done. That was about it.
I played football in high school. I played all of my freshman year and a portion of my sophomore year. And then I played volleyball junior and senior year. I tried out freshman and sophomore year and didn't make the team.
I forgot that I tried swimming, too.
Did you really?
I did, but I was too buoyant, so that didn't work.
Yeah, me too. Got the same problem. That's what happens when you're fat. Not saying you're fat.
That's funny. Well, in high school, it was a little different. But
no, so I played football. I played volleyball. Didn't play in college, of course, in anything. I was not talented enough to play sports, but I was always the kid that when I was young, I wanted so desperately to be good at sports. I was never really good at music, which is ironic considering part of my job now, my life is music. But I was never good at singing. I was never good at playing instruments. I just wanted so bad.
You so opened yourself up for me to just rip on that. Right
I know.
Now,
I was waiting for it. I was trying to give you a free one.
I was debating if I should be nice or not. I'm going to be nice. You do a good job.
See, now that's just like a backhanded comment. So
at least I was positive.
You don't even have to say it now. Now I know what you were
positive.
thinking. No, so I wanted so bad to be on a good, like, be good at a sport. Actually, we didn't talk about this in pre-show, but this is just a quick funny story. Did you know that I got kicked off of my dad's baseball team?
Off your dad's baseball team?
Uh-huh.
He was coaching and he kicked you off? Dude, that's like a movie.
Now, what's funny is I caused it. I mean, it's not like my dad basically gave me the choice to either stay or to walk away.
That's really sad.
And I walked all the way home from the baseball fields, which is about, 3/4 of a mile or so from my house. And here's a quick backstory. So when I was in Mustang, which would have been, I don't know, I had to be third or fourth grade, maybe fifth grade at most. I wanted so bad to be a catcher. I loved the idea of the catcher. I mean, they put on the cool equipment. They're kind of like the quarterback of the team. You know, they're in charge of the field and all this. And so I wanted to be a catcher. My dad's like, you can't catch. You're gonna play right field. Like, yeah, but no one ever hits to right field, Dad. That's the point. Go play in right field. I'm like, no, I want to be the catcher. Now, keep in mind that the kid that played catcher ended up being our starting quarterback when I was in high school.
Nice.
Same age as me. So this kid was a super talented athlete. He was a catcher on our baseball team in high school. So, I mean, this kid was a good athlete. And here I am, this fat, short kid who has almost no athletic ability at all, saying, I want to be the catcher. You can put him in the outfield.
So Dad kicked you off?
No, well, so my dad said you can either go in right field, you can sit on the bench, or you can go home. Those are your choices. And I just walked home. So it's really not correct. If my dad's listening to this, he's going to get mad that I said he kicked me off the team, because he bristles,
your choice.
He bristles at that because he gave me the choice and I chose to walk away.
He learned that day that his son would not be afraid to call his bluff.
Nope.
Yep.
Sure wasn't. So, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
No,
ahead.
please you.
Age before.
No, you first.
Look at this guy. So today we're talking about this idea of,
here it comes,
the Sabbath being removed from our kids for not just sports, although we're going to use sports as an example as we've started this conversation. But, you know, it could be the arts of some sort, you know, whether it's singing, playing an instrument in an orchestra or something, being in the community theater. There are lots of things that happen on Sundays now, or Wednesday nights when we have youth group, or Thursday nights when youth group happens, or whatever, wherever you're at. But Jesus has been ejected from the Sabbath. The Sabbath has been ejected from many kids' and teenagers' lives. And so that's where we're going to focus our attention today, is the causes of that, how that's changed over the years. Between the two of us, we have 35 years of youth ministry experience plus. And the consequences of kids not getting Sabbath and not being able to be rooted in Sabbath and how important it is. Before we get deep into that conversation, though, can you kind of just, Eric, give us a generalized discussion or definition, biblically speaking, on what Sabbath is? Because I think there's going to be people, whether they're believers or not, who may not really understand what Sabbath is.
Yeah. So Sabbath is basically you're taking and keeping the day for God. You're setting that aside as a priority, is what Scripture has said. So let me just pull up some Scripture for us today. So if you're following, like, you know, some of you have asked that we give you Scripture and the references, so I want to do that for you today. We're not quite set up yet to go and type it all out for you, so you just have to listen. So anyway, so Exodus 16 is kind of where I'm at. Exodus 20, verse 8, Exodus 16, 23. Says, so remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Well, the Lord said, that he commanded this, tomorrow is to be a day of rest, a Sabbath, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. So bake what you want to bake and boil what you want to boil. Save whatever is left and keep it until morning, because then the next morning you eat it today, because today is the Sabbath to the Lord. You will not find any meat on the ground today. Eat what you have saved and gathered. 6 days you are to gather. In other words, 6 days you are to work. But on the seventh day is the Sabbath. There will not be any work on the Sabbath. Bear in mind that the Lord has given you the Sabbath, and this is why on the sixth day he gives you the bread for 2 days. And so basically the Sabbath, without really getting into, you know, really the Sabbath, that's going to be a different podcast.
Yeah, it's going to be part 2 of this podcast.
Yeah, so today's idea is for us to look at the 2 days, right? The 6 days, the 2 days. He gives us what we need so that we don't have to do things on the Sabbath.
So is it fair to say that the Sabbath was created for us?
Yeah, the Sabbath was created for us. We get that backwards sometimes. because we can't go and work and run and work and work and work, 7 days a week, right? We're not created for that. We're created because we need rest. We need rest. So that's why the Lord says, "Hey, I rested." He didn't need rest. He's God, right?
He's God. Yeah,
that's ridiculous. He doesn't need rest, but he took it as an example for us. So he commands us to keep that day to worship him and thank him. So as we get into this, let's just say that we're not bashing sports. This is just the avenue that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
And it's not adult sports. We're not talking professional. We're going to just kind of look at, especially as youth pastors here sitting before you, we're looking at what we see and what we've worked with over 35 years. And I got to say, probably didn't handle everything correctly in my day. Probably could have handled things a little bit different. But at the same time, I didn't really run from the topic and the issue. We try to make some things happen. We'll talk about some of that. But who doesn't like to go and watch T-ball with their kids and cheer and clap? And who doesn't like watching their kids go to practice and then you go to the game on the weekends or in the evenings and you want your kid to play, right? You're invested, you're there, so you want to do that. Nobody likes to take the bench on anything. But maybe this is a chance for us today in this conversation to strike a conversation in you and in your home to really ask the question: is God priority in this area of our family?
Well, and just to get us started, one of the things that I think from a pastor's perspective, and we didn't even talk about this in pre-show, but this is just something I've been thinking about. One of the things that's frustrating for pastors, we like to live life with our people, right?
Yep.
One of our, I would say, our primary responsibility is to be with our people, to live life with our people. When sports happen on Saturday or Sunday, when if you have Saturday night service or whatever, when church is happening, you have removed the possibility for the pastoral staff, that your pastors, to be involved in that part of your kid's life, your family life, because we're obviously not going to take off a Sunday morning to go to a kid's traveling baseball game, but we would like to be a part of a kid's traveling baseball game. We would love to be there for our kids.
Right, and we don't get to all those, but that is part of it. But still, the Sabbath, though, for an individual family, it's priority.
Sure.
Right? So there is life in the church. We're going to talk about how that helps us connect, like as pastors, and helps you to connect as a church by keeping that Sabbath holy.
So
right?
We've kind of illustrated the problem, right, a little bit, but let's flesh it out some more. You've been in ministry for how many years now total?
Oh man, do I have to tell you that? Probably like 30, going on 32.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had 25 years in youth ministry. Yep. I have 10. So let's go back to even when you were a kid. So when you were in youth ministry age or children's ministry age, what did sports and activities look like for a kid your age?
Okay.
Being this guy, he thinks that Michigan is the Bible Belt.
Trust me, you haven't lived there. It is.
So I'm from Illinois.
Bible Belt goes south to north, right?
Right, but it goes through Illinois into Michigan.
Nah, I missed Illinois.
I was in Oklahoma. That's Bible Belt.
No, that's the outskirts.
Okay. All right.
So in Michigan,
the Bible Belt of Michigan,
the northern Bible Belt of Michigan, is where I grew up. And for us, the Sabbath, for me growing up as a kid, the Sabbath was, we didn't do anything on Sunday. My dad didn't work on Sundays. He could have made double time working at the shop he worked at. He worked for General Motors, but he didn't work on Sunday. He established that in our family. My grandparents didn't work on Sunday. As a kid, if you were a Christian, Sunday was family day. But even if you weren't a Christian, we didn't get together with neighborhood kids because it was family day. Everybody did, the neighborhood cookout. They spent time with their families and whatever. So we didn't work or play really on Sunday. It was a day set aside to do things that you normally didn't do, right? And it was rest, focused on church. Of course, we did Sunday school, and then we did church, and then we took the Nazarene nap, and then we did church again on Sunday night, yep. Right? Which made you miss that movie on Sunday night that you wanted to watch, or turn the sporting event off that you were like, the last 5 minutes of the game, seriously, Dad, we can't watch that. Out the door, you go to church on Sunday night. Yeah. So that was like how I grew up. But then in ministry, as a student pastor, we saw this evolution to where students were able to come to youth group on Wednesday night, and there were no sports traveling teams on the weekends. I mean, they didn't exist. And it just kind of began to creep in at a younger age where, hey, let's go put kids, and they're 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old into sporting events. And that just kind of helped this whole thing just evolve to where, man, now we're, in competitions at all over the board with our age spectrum. And in the church, it went from, hey, we're doing nothing on Sunday except worship the Lord to, okay, now maybe let's get together and do some things. It's going to interfere with Wednesday night youth group. And then that evolved into Sunday, the occasional Sunday game, which I remember those days. It was like, you're going to go play a game on Sunday? Yeah, it's just one game. So they go and do that, and it was the talk. But then that's turned into now we have families that leave for like 12 weeks.
Yeah, because if their kid's a multi-sport athlete, it could be
6 months.
6 months.
So it has impacted how we view and how we do the Sabbath.
Yeah.
Because how you do the Sabbath, it really does impact how you raise your kid. It really does impact their viewpoint of the church. The priority of the Sabbath, if it's not there when they're young, it's not going to be there when they're old. And then what do we get as youth pastors? We get parents that bring their students to us and say, fix them.
Yeah.
Fix
I
them.
can
They're
tell
broken.
you there is serious consequences for a kid when you burn them out. And
that's a big part of it.
I had a kid not too long ago who I was talking to about sports, and this kid, it was so disappointing to hear as a youth pastor that the student goes, I'm in this sport, I'm in this sport, I'm in this sport, and my parents want me to be in this and this.
Yep.
I'm like, so basically, are you telling me that they want you to play sports all year, 12 months out of the year? Yeah.
Yep, I've heard that several times.
Do you have time for anything else? Nope.
Yeah.
And you could tell that the student, when they were talking to me, you can tell that student didn't want to play those sports, that they were being forced into those sports. Now, I'm sure the parents have good intentions in that. I'm sure the parents, see the athletic ability of this particular kid, and they see that there's potential for that kid to do big things in sports, and so they push and push and push to help that kid be successful. I'm sure you've heard it multiple times. I certainly have heard it multiple times from parents over the years. My kid's going to be a professional athlete, or my kid's going to play Division I ball, or something like that. Look, I know you know this instinctively, but I'm going to say it anyway. Your kid's probably not going to be a professional athlete. Your kid's probably not even going to play Division I or Division II sports. It's the number of kids that get to play on those levels is small.
Right.
I was telling you in pre-show, I have known the kids I went to school with, high school with. I know 2 kids who played professional sports. 2. Both of them played at Division I schools for 2 different sports, and then they played in the professionals for NBA and then NFL, briefly in the NFL. And neither one of them, I would imagine, one I know more than the other, I don't think he would say, man, I'm really glad that I spent all of my 7th, 8th, 9th grade years playing AAU ball. Like, he was at AAU ball all the time playing basketball. Mm-hmm. That's all he did. His whole life was basketball, basketball, basketball. And he played in the NBA for like 4 years.
And this is where this whole topic comes up with us that we hear. And again, this whole idea of the podcast is to help kind of what we deal with and how we're trying to help and come alongside parents. It's hard because we're not against the sport, but we're against losing the priority, right? Of keeping this whole thing holy. And you're right. I mean, most kids aren't going to go and play professional ball, but I've never had, out of all my years, I may have had 1, maybe 2 families that are not like this, but I've never had a problem with a student keeping the Sabbath holy. It's usually been Mama Bear. Mama Bear comes out when you.
Or, I mean, I've seen it with Dad too. Dad,
Yeah.
you know, if Dad's really involved, if he's the coach, or if Dad's just, you know, the super,
right. Your dad kicked you off the team.
Well, let's not talk about that again.
But you see, they have this idea that, man, our kid is involved. They've practiced. We want the best for them, and you know, socially, we get this whole social network around us that, you know, it's a prestige thing. It's who we are. We get some identity out of that. And some of that's great and healthy, but a lot of it's not, depending on your heart and the reason why you're doing it. So this is where we want to challenge people, is talk to your coaches, right? Ask your coaches, hey, what can I do? I got church on Wednesday night. We got church on Sunday. What can I do to still do those and still be part of the team?
Well, even before we get there, though, I think it's important to understand that you've heard this before. So if I take my kid out of X sport, X activity, again, it could be symphony orchestra, whatever. Mm-hmm. They're never going to forgive the church. They're going to blame it on the church, and I'm going to lose them to church.
Yep.
Is that a real concern?
Well, I think it's a real concern. I mean, parents always ask that, and that is a comment. So somewhere along reality, it's real. However, it's I'm not sure really valid, because we, as parents, our role is to give them Jesus and not the sport. So I've never seen anything in the Word that says, "Oh, spare the rod, and you're going to be okay." Right?
Yeah.
I don't see that.
Right.
It's set the priority for your home, and let God work in that. Have faith that it's going to come back, right? And be an encouragement to your family and your kids' faith. So yeah, I hear that, but hey, boy, it's really hard to really get a handle on. Is it really valid?
Well, and when I've heard that concern, I've challenged. Well, the reverse is also true.
Yep.
Because if you don't push your child, your teenager, whatever, to be in church, they're not going to be in church because it's not a priority in their life. They're not going to care.
Right.
You know, maybe someday later in their life they make a decision to follow Jesus more intently, and they end up. But I have students. I have a student right now that I'm thinking of that. This student is on fire for Jesus. The student has Bible studies with other students. This student has faith. Every time I've talked to this student, you can hear the faith in their voice. You can hear how they speak. They believe in Jesus, but they're not connected to a faith community at all. Mm-hmm. As far as youth group, church, they're just not connected. And it's disappointing because the kid has so much potential to be not only a leader, but has potential to really grow deep in their faith, because we need church. We need other people.
Right.
But because sports play such a huge role in this particular student's life, Saturday and Sunday is their sports days. They're doing it 24/7, 12 months a year. I mean, that's it's this one sport is all they devote their time to. And again, before we can get to solutions, we have to understand this is a real issue. This is a real problem for our kids. And it hasn't happened overnight. I remember back when I was in high school, I'm sure that there were AAU teams that traveled and did stuff on Sundays. I'm sure there were traveling baseball teams that did stuff on Sundays and softball and whatever. But it certainly wasn't as prevalent as it is today.
Right.
And I know for me, when I got a job, I made sure to get a job that allowed me to be off on Wednesday nights for youth group and allowed me to be off on Sunday mornings so that I could go to church. Now, if I had a do-over, I wouldn't have worked on Sunday afternoons. I would have taken a whole day to be with my family. But nevertheless, as a young kid, I made the decision that church was that important. I don't see that out of students anymore. I actually quit football because I wanted to be a part of youth group. I don't see kids doing that anymore. In my total decade of ministry plus now, I've not seen one kid do it.
Yeah, I was always blessed by the student that would come up and go, you know what? I went and talked to coach. I'm going to be in youth group on Wednesday night. That's a student leader. That's somebody who's going to be a board member, a member of their church. They're going to be a tither. They're going to be the ones that come cut the church grass and wash the windows and repair the roof. And so I'm always blessed by that too. But the other thing that I don't see, and it shifted somewhere in ministry in the last 20 years, that grandparents, we're talking to you today too, because grandparents have given up on asking the question and trying to set the standard, because what they get from their sons and daughters is, well, you know what, boy, we're very great to have our grandkids in church with us. And the response is like, oh, mom and dad, it's just sports. It's just, this too shall pass. And so grandparents, I don't see a lot of grandparents really with that burning fire anymore to fight this battle.
Well, and if you ask any children's pastor or youth pastor, teen pastor, whatever you want to call it, we will all tell you unequivocally. I don't know any youth pastor, children's pastor who would say anything to the contrary. If you don't teach your children now, as children, particularly even before youth group age, if you don't teach those kids the priorities in their life, they are likely not going to have them when they graduate from high school. Mm-hmm. The reason kids kind of just sail through college is because they don't get the discipline and the life skills that they need in elementary, middle school, high school. Mm-hmm. And the same is true here. If you don't instill Sabbath as being important in, before we can talk about any real solutions, the first part of any solution is you have to model it for your kids. Yep. It has to be a priority in your life, let alone your kids. And so parents, that makes a tough decision, because some of you work hourly jobs. Some of you work, non-salary, where, if you work for, not to call out Walmart, but I mean, if you work to a retail store like a Walmart, the schedule is what the schedule is. They need you when they need you. They don't need you. They may need you on Sunday. So, we have police officers that work at our church and firefighters. The schedule is what the schedule is. Mm-hmm. But just because it's not on Sunday doesn't mean you can't have Sabbath.
Right.
Just because you're working on Sunday doesn't mean you can't have a Sabbath another day of the week. But you have to have Sabbath, and you have to show your kids Sabbath is an important part of your life. It should be a part of your rhythm. We are supposed to abide with Christ. You can't abide with Christ if you're not taking advantage of Sabbath.
Yeah, and that's a really hard thing to do. We understand that. I mean, I understand that we want that for our kids. I think that's parents' desire really in their heart. They want that for their kids. But man, we want them to be out on the field and the court too. Can't we do both? It's hard.
So you asked the question, can we do both? In your life,
Yep.
With you and your wife as parents, have you evidenced that in your parents? Or in your life with your kids? Have you been able to successfully accomplish that?
Well, successfully,
My kids aren't old enough yet.
But Claire does have a birthday this month.
Yeah, she shares it with some weird guy.
It's awesome. January 29th, me and Clara, just saying. Okay, that was a side note. I think we were successful. I'm not sure we were successful all the time. And again, we probably messed it up. But looking now where our kids are at the age they are, I think we did a pretty good job at instilling in them that Sabbath is a priority, that church is a priority, and they still played sports.
You were telling me about a story with a cross-country coach.
Yeah, our kids, even with their baseball and their basketball, their soccer, and even our daughter with her choir and plays and stuff, we asked them to go to their coaches and talk to them about, hey, I got youth group on Wednesday night. Is there anything else I can do to make up that practice time? And most of the time, I maybe think of maybe one or two times where the coaches were just like, absolutely not. Our kids put in extra time in practice. But then they went to their coach and say, hey, you know what? I can't do Sundays because it's our family day. It's our church day. So I can be there on the weekend. I can play Friday. I can play Saturday, but I can't play Sunday. So what is there I can do to still be committed to you, coach, be committed to the team? What can I do extra? Our kids took the bench, but our kids came back from their coach conversations, and the coaches may not have been really happy, but they honored it. They understood, and they were okay, you're not just blowing the team off. You do have a reason. We don't agree with the reason. We're not Christian. We don't believe in your faith. But, even this sounds ridiculous, but we know you do. So they honored that. So our kids began to see, okay, well, and we had tears. We had lots of tears because I got to go to practice, but I can't play. Why go to practice? Well, because you're honoring God, and God's going to honor you. And even down to our cross country with Graydon, we lived in Arizona, and he loved cross country, loved running, but his coach, we rubbed each other the wrong way because Graydon went and was able to say, "Hey, I got youth group on Wednesday night, so I'll come to practice, but I have to leave early. So what can I do to make it up?" So Graydon would go run early in the mornings. He'd make some things up. Kind of satisfy coach, but then they would travel on the weekends, and Graydon's like, "Hey, I can run, here and Saturday, but Sunday just doesn't work." So we had that battle in Arizona big time. But where it got interesting with Graydon is he was running for he was eligible for state cross country. Sorry, cross country people. They were ready to go to state, and Graydon was pumped. Coach was pumped. The team was pumped. And we ended up moving here 2 weeks before state. And, man, Graydon was not happy. Crushed him. I mean, he was like, I so want that so bad. Worked so hard for it. Where the coach, who didn't like us, who didn't like Graydon's stand with the church, offered Graydon to come live with him for those 2 weeks so that Graydon could stay in Arizona and run at the state track or state cross country. And obviously we didn't let him do that for lots of different reasons, but ask your coaches. I mean, ask your employers. I mean, so this isn't just a church and sport thing. This is ask, those that you're working with, hey, what can we do here? Because church is a priority. And what I see is that our kids now have held that Sabbath as holy in ways that I didn't even think they would do.
Well, even with like Gideon, your second oldest boy. I was struck just a couple weeks ago when you were off for the weekend. Gideon came to church all by himself. I mean, that's just evidence of it. Like, it's that important to him. He came to church. Yeah. It wasn't his Sunday off. It was your Sunday off, and he was there, which shows that. And again, this is not to beat up on parents, okay? That's not what this is about. This is to give you some food for thought, give you something to think about, because whether you're a pastor or whether you're somebody who just comes to church on Sundays, this affects all parents. This is and I know this is hard to hear, but sometimes you just got to say no. Yep. Because sometimes the coach or the activity that you're doing, I mean, sometimes if they're doing a play, there's just no wiggle on that. That's just what they're going to do. It's going to be on a Wednesday night for rehearsals, or there's going to be a Sunday performance. I mean, that's just how it's going to work. Sometimes you got to tell your kid no, and that's hard. Sometimes it is crushing for those kids. They'll get over it, though. Kids are resilient.
And this is us encouraging you to not just say no, but instill in your kids, ask permission to keep the day holy.
Yeah.
Ask permission to keep Christ priority number one. And that's where I think parents, so when we say this, parents struggle with that because parents haven't learned how to do that.
Yeah.
They haven't done it with their employers. They haven't done it with maybe their higher education. They haven't done it with, pick whatever avenue you live in, parents. But so we have to instill that in our own hearts. Yeah. So it's us encouraging you. It can be done, and it can be done successfully. Yeah. Because God honors that.
And to get it more personal, if you have a church home and it's not Hermaz, get with your pastor or your pastors and talk to them about it. Dude, your thing's about to die.
I just turned it off.
Get with them because they can help you work through some of that.
We'll try.
Yeah, they'll try. Yeah. I can tell you this as somebody who networks with lots of youth pastors. Youth pastors and children's pastors have a desire to help parents work through these issues. They want to be there to help lift your kid and encourage your kid if a tough decision has to be made. They want to be there to support you and support the kid. So you have that support, whether you think you do or not. There is support there for you in tough decisions. And then if you're a part of Hermnaz, That's why we're here. That's why the board has called us here. The church has called us here. This is what we do. This is part of our life. And so, our job as pastors is to call out things that we know are necessary. And this is a scriptural thing, and it's a life thing. And again, God created Sabbath for us. And so we're looking forward to the second part of this, because we're going to really dive into what Sabbath is. And one of the things that I hear, and we'll kind of tie it up with this, that I hear from parents, we said we wouldn't talk a whole lot about pro sports, but they look at pro sport athletes, guys like Wilson, who is the quarterback of the Seahawks, or Carson Wentz, former quarterback with the Eagles, on and on it goes. You can get a bunch of high-profile faith guys and gals in sports, and they'll say, "Well, like with the football players, they don't go to church on Sundays. So why are you hitting us with this? What about them?" The whataboutism stuff is really just it's an invalid excuse. Can you tell them why that's an invalid excuse?
And we'll dive into this again later, and we have some guests that we're going to try to bring on the show to help us flush this out a little bit. But it's invalid because we don't know their personal life. We don't know them off screen. We don't know their worship style. We don't know what their Sabbath is. We only know what we see. And we're talking about not just Christian athletes. We're talking about the Christian athletes that it's very evident that they have a relationship with Jesus. And how do you tell the difference? Do some homework on them. And the ones we're talking about are the ones that we know are members of their local church.
Yep.
They're tied to their church. They tithe with their finances. They give to charities and other foundations. A lot of these guys that we're talking about, they participate in a life group in their church in some form. So they're connected to their church. There's life. When you're not connected to your church, it's really hard to not feel disconnected to your church.
Yeah.
And so they might play on Sundays, but we don't know what
they may have a Sabbath on another day of the week we just don't know about. And something to know about professional athletes, almost every professional team, if not everyone, has a chaplain who is assigned to that team, who's been hired by the team.
Can you imagine being the chaplain for Chicago Bears?
Dude, that'd be
your dream job.
I told you in pre-show, if that ever happens, I'm taking that.
This is your dream job for right now.
This is my dream job for now. But I mean, if I ever got offered the chance to be the Bears chaplain, yeah, that would be a chance of a lifetime. No, but I have I wouldn't call him a close friend, but he's a friend, Lamoris Crawford, who went to Olivet, your stomping ground, the small school in former Bears training camp location. Anyway, but Lamoris, he, at least up until this previous season, football, not the one that's currently going, he was the chaplain of the Cincinnati Bengals. And I know he's real close with guys like Andy Dalton. For those of you who are football fans, you might know that name. Played for the Cowboys this year as their starting quarterback when Dak got hurt. But anyway, Andy, him and several other players on that team at the time when they were with the Bengals had life groups for all intents and purposes every week with Lamoris and his wife and their wives, and they did life together, and I know they worship together. So they are getting faith. They are getting faith community, and sometimes in ways you have no idea. You just don't even know exists. Right. In addition to their own churches and stuff. So
one thing that on this topic comes up is, hey, we do church online. So here's some things that we tried, because this is the evolution of this whole idea of church and sports and the priority of the Sabbath. We went through a time in ministry where we would say, yeah, you go, but you meet ahead of time with your family or other team members and their families, and have church. Mm-hmm. We have a family in our church now here at Hermnaz that at least last season during their sporting events, they would watch church online.
Yeah.
Right. Which is good, which is really good. But you're still not connected.
There's a danger in that.
There is a danger in that. But we would tell our people, hey, go for your weekends. You're going to be gone for the next 8 weeks, on traveling sport. Watch church online. Do church together with your family or other people. My family, we experimented with that concept where I had to work, right? I wasn't taking a Sunday off to go do that. But but my wife would go with the kids, and they would travel on Saturday and Sunday, and the coach knew that, hey, church is a priority, but we're going to be there for the weekend. Play us when you can. And I think, and I didn't talk to my wife about this, but I think every weekend that they did that, the game time was actually after church. So there was a time where my family went and they visited church, because the game didn't start until noon. So, but they're 5 hours away. So they went to a church, and kept it that priority. They watched online, or there was even times where they had their devotions with maybe themselves, and it seems like maybe another family that joined them, kind of thing. So we experimented with that. But the interesting part was they come back and there's still a disconnect. Even though they did that, and it's instilled in our kids that this is what we do. Okay, we're trying to make sports work. But my role then as dad was, what'd you talk about? How did church go?
Yeah.
And then, hey, tell me about your game. I could have very easily forgot about the church part and asked about it and just asked about the game. And
Right.
did coach let you play? What was the attitude? Blah, blah, blah. Did you get a home run? And et cetera. But trying to and it takes work, parents. It takes work, grandparents, to keep even the conversation as a priority, to keep it holy. And that's what we even see in the professional sport guys. We don't see that, but yet we know that they're there. We know that they have some of those in the background things. So,
Well, I'm really excited. We are going to work behind the scenes before our next part of this, and there's an NFL referee you're going to try and get a hold of that you're connected to, and I'm going to get connected with my buddy Lamoris and see if we can get him on the show to just kind of talk about some of that, because they're with professional athletes. They know what professional athletes have gone through. So, kind of to dispel some rumors about that, or some thoughts on that. But to help that even with professional athletes, there's ways to make this work. There's ways to make this happen. So Eric is really excited about next week's show. He pretends that he has these, but he really doesn't.
you have no idea.
If they're in places that I don't know about, then I don't want to know.
There you go.
So I'm just going to say, so what are we talking about?
So, okay, so we didn't even know, you didn't know this until I told you this morning in pre-show. But next week, I think we need to cover the whole idea of storytelling in a very unique way. Everybody, well, not everybody, but
an interesting way to put it.
Even you tells a story with your life. It's the tattoo culture in the church.
Yeah, I have one, and my wife has 5, and so
5. Oh man,
I do like. I really, honestly, I
didn't know that.
I like the way you describe that storytelling, because it'll be that is a big part of it, and I think people leave that out. So that'll be a good conversation.
Storytelling through the tattoo. So that's next week.
Next week at 10 a.m.
Yep.
Just remember, you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcast, Anchor.fm, our awesome host for our podcasts. And then also you can find us on YouTube. So if you want to go back and watch, they also are premiered, so you'll be able to watch the video live at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays. Or Facebook Live, of course, again, Tuesday at 10 a.m. To see the show live and in time. So thank you for being a part of the show. Thank you for commenting. Please keep doing that. Let us know how we're doing. Give us suggestions, because we could always use new topics. If you don't think tattoos are interesting, then give us another idea, and we'll run with it.
Well, you looked at some stats about stuff. Share that with us real quick. Like how the show's doing, because you're actually watching, which is impressive.
We've had some pretty interesting stats. People really like our alien conversation.
Can you believe that? Weird people.
Yeah. So,
and the other ones were what? Compassion,
and our review of 2020.
Yeah. Who wants to review that?
Yeah, no kidding.
So, anyways, thanks for coming and being part of our journey here and tuning in with us. Herm Nass, thank you for sponsoring us, giving us time to do this, giving us a room and some technology, and giving us a little bit of cash flow to make this happen. So, hey, if you're not part of a church, find a church, be active in a church, and doesn't have to be Herm Nass, but wherever you're at, get involved, get plugged in.
We'll see you next week,
All
10
right,
a.m.
bye.
Tuesday.